You come home a little later than usual, not dramatically late, just 2, maybe 3 hours beyond your normal return time. And the moment you open the door, something is different. Your dog doesn't simply greet you, they collide with you. They press their full weight against your legs, nose working frantically, tail moving with an urgency that feels less like joy and more like desperation. You try to move to the kitchen, and they follow. You sit down and they don't just settle nearby, they settle on you, as if testing whether you're actually real. It takes a long time for them to finally go still, and even then, they keep watching you. You probably told yourself it's because they missed you, that they're just happy, but there's something in the texture of that particular greeting, something wound tighter than usual, something that takes longer to unwind, that doesn't quite match the explanation you've given it. Tonight we're going to look at what was actually happening in the hours before you walked in. Most working dog owners carry a quiet, comfortable belief about their dog's day. The belief goes something like this: while you're gone, your dog sleeps. They nap on the couch, maybe wander to the water bowl, maybe stare out a window for a while, and then drift back to sleep until the sound of your car or your key in the lock brings them back to life. The long hours in this version of events are largely a non-event because dogs live in the present moment, unburdened by anticipation, indifferent to the passage of time. Waiting for a dog is simply a neutral state of being. They have no appointments to miss, no clock to watch, no awareness that it's been longer than usual. That belief is easy to hold. It's reinforced by the fact that your dog seems fine. They eat, they play, they're not visibly damaged by the day. The belief feels kind and reasonable. It also happens to be incomplete. Here's a detail that the "they just sleep" assumption cannot account for. If dogs were genuinely indifferent to the duration of absence, if time simply passed without registering, then their stress indicators would be uniform regardless of how long you were gone. A 2-hour absence and an 8-hour absence would produce the same physiological response, but that's not what the research shows. Studies measuring cortisol levels in dogs during owner absences document a clear and consistent dose-response relationship. The longer the separation, the higher the stress hormones upon reunion, the more prolonged the reattachment behavior that follows, and the more disrupted the dog's sleep architecture during the absence itself. The data doesn't describe a dog sleeping peacefully through an extended day. It describes a nervous system that has been running an extended stress response, quietly, invisibly, and for hours. The psychological framework that explains this is called anticipatory anxiety, and it is rooted in something far deeper than simple loneliness. Research in veterinary behavioral science, including work published by teams at the University of Helsinki studying owner-dog attachment, has established that dogs with strong human bonds begin showing physiological signs of arousal, not when you leave, but before you leave. The sight of work clothes, the sound of an alarm, keys being lifted from a hook. These pre-departure cues trigger elevated heart rate and behavioral restlessness before you've even walked out the door, because the dog has learned to associate those signals with what follows. When you leave, that arousal is activated, and when your expected return time passes without you appearing, the arousal has nowhere to resolve. Cortisol doesn't plateau, it accumulates. It builds across the additional hours, layer by layer, because the signal the nervous system is waiting for, your return, never comes. What this means, inside your dog's actual experience, is something worth sitting with for a moment. A long day is not simply an extended version of a normal absence. It is an absence that exceeded prediction, and that changes its psychological character entirely. Dogs, like all attachment-bonded mammals, operate on expected patterns of reunion. When those patterns hold, the nervous system can tolerate the separation with relative stability. But when the predicted return doesn't arrive, when the window passes and the door stays closed, the system doesn't simply wait longer, it escalates. What you experienced as an unusually intense greeting was the visible end of a day during which your dog's attachment system had been running without resolution, reaching for a return that kept not coming. There's also a biological mechanism through which dogs actually track elapsed time, and it is more precise than most owners realize. Research in canine chronobiology has established that dogs possess functioning circadian rhythms, internal clocks that regulate sleep cycles, hunger, and hormonal fluctuations across the day. But beyond that, studies, including olfactory research conducted at the University of California, suggest that dogs use the gradual fading of their owner's scent in the home as a kind of chemical clock. As your scent dissipates from furniture, from bedding, from the air itself, the dog is receiving a measurable signal of elapsed time. When that scent has faded beyond the threshold that normally precedes your return, and you still haven't appeared, researchers believe this mismatch functions as a biological alarm, a chemical signal that something is overdue. The nervous system responds accordingly. To understand why the response is so strong, you have to go back much further than domestication. In wild canid groups, an extended, unexplained absence of a central pack member was never a neutral event. It was a signal with serious survival weight. A packmate absent beyond their expected return had possibly encountered a predator, sustained an injury, or died. The adaptive response to that scenario was not relaxed waiting, it was heightened vigilance, distress vocalization, and sustained physiological alertness. That wiring was not erased when dogs moved into human homes. It was redirected. Your dog is not registering a scheduling inconvenience when you work 3 hours late. They are running a response shaped by millions of years of what unexplained, prolonged absence has historically meant for social mammals. The urgency you feel in that greeting is not personality. It is evolution. And what happens when those long days aren't occasional but chronic? Research on cortisol patterns in dogs whose owners keep irregular hours, published through the Applied Animal Behavior Science Journal, reveals something important. Unpredictability is more psychologically corrosive than consistent long absences. A dog whose owner reliably returns at 7 in the evening develops a stable anticipatory rhythm. The nervous system has a window to orient around, a pattern to hold. But a dog whose owner returns anywhere between 4 and 10 with no reliable rhythm lives in a state of perpetually unresolved anticipation. The return window never closes. The nervous system never quite settles. Over time, that chronic low-grade activation reshapes the dog's behavioral baseline, not just their response on any single day. Now here's where the research offers something genuinely unexpected, something that quietly reframes the guilt most working dog owners carry. Studies consistently show that the single most powerful moderating variable in canine stress recovery is not the length of the absence. It is the quality of the reunion. Dogs whose owners return home in a calm, attentive, physically present way, even after very long days, show measurably faster cortisol recovery and lower overnight stress indicators than dogs whose owners come home distracted, brief, and emotionally unavailable. The phone stays out. The mental checklist keeps running. The dog gets a quick pat, and the nervous system, which has been waiting all day for this moment, doesn't fully discharge. The twist is quietly important. It is not only the hours away that shape your dog's experience of that day. It is what happens in the first 15 minutes after you walk back in. Because the dog's stress response is driven significantly by unpredictability, even small investments in temporal consistency carry real psychological weight. Returning within a similar window most days, establishing a reliable post-return ritual, even something as simple as 5 minutes of undivided, grounded attention. On days when late hours are unavoidable, research suggests that a brief midday interaction, a familiar voice through a device, a check-in from a dog walker, even a consistent auditory cue can measurably interrupt the stress accumulation cycle. The intervention doesn't need to be dramatic. The dog's nervous system is not asking for more hours. It is asking for pattern, for predictability, for the reassurance that the expected return is still coming. Even a small, consistent signal can reset the clock. Go back to that evening now, your dog pressing against you with that particular intensity, following you from room to room, finally going still only when you stop moving. You understand it differently now. That wasn't simply excitement. That was a nervous system completing a very long arc, finally receiving the signal it had been waiting hours to receive, that you were back, that the pattern had held, that the world was stable again. Your dog did not spend the day unbothered. They spent it waiting, not passively, not peacefully, but with the full biological urgency of a creature for whom your presence is not a preference. It is a need as old as the species itself. What you came home to that evening was not a greeting. It was a resolution. And the fact that you are here reading this, thinking about what their day actually looked like, that already matters more than you know. If you've ever noticed that your dog follows you more closely than usual on evenings after a long day, or that their greeting feels different, heavier somehow, share that in the comments. You're probably reading them more accurately than you think. And next time, we're going to look at something that builds directly on this. What your dog does in those first moments after you come home tells you more about their inner world than almost anything else. The specific behavior they show, The way they greet you, where they position themselves, how long before they settle, reveals exactly how they've been feeling all day. That's next.